Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Great to see you both. Thank you for your service to the country. It's pretty stunning to me how this country and our allies fail to learn recent history lessons. Those recent history lessons in both Afghanistan and Iraq tell us that there are substantial, grave limitations to the ability of military force to eliminate a terrorist threat. In fact, history tells us that the application of overwhelming military force can, in fact, grow terrorist threats, not shrink them. Mr. Secretary, you've said today that Israel has the right to defend itself. The United States supports Israel's right to defend itself. I agree. But if Israel's strategy is making it more likely, not less likely, that future terrorist attacks will occur, then it is not an effective strategy. And so it's all well and good to get angry about a conversation the United States is having with Israel over the right strategy to defeat terrorism, but we have lots of experience in failed strategies. The National Intelligence Estimate, released just earlier this year, said this, that the Gaza crisis has galvanized violence by a range of actors around the world, and while it is too early to tell, it is likely that the Gaza conflict will have a generational impact on terrorism, a generational impact on terrorism. Both al-Qaeda and ISIS, inspired by Hamas, have directed supporters to conduct attacks against Israeli and U.S. interests. Here's my question. How do we apply the lessons that we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan as a means of helping Israel understand how to defeat Hamas? And what is your assessment of whether this campaign is, in the long run, going to decrease the ability of Hamas or follow-on organizations to recruit and retain strength and the ability to hurt Israel and the United States?
Thanks, Senator. We've said all along that Hamas does not equal the Palestinian people. They're not one and the same. And what we learned, to your point, key lesson there is that you have to protect the people, the civilians in the battle space. Otherwise, you create more terrorists going forward. So it's not only a moral imperative, but it's also a strategic imperative that you protect civilians, and the two aren't mutually exclusive. You can do both, and we know how to do that. And so, in terms of the lessons learned, the kinds of things that we would endeavor to pass along, those are the things that we continue to have a dialogue on. But there have been far too many civilian casualties in this battle space, and I think we should do everything possible to ensure that we're protecting for the civilians and providing for their welfare, humanitarian assistance.
I think you are right that there is a strategic and a moral reason to care about the number of civilian casualties in Gaza, even if you don't care about the moral consequences of 13,000 children dead. You should care about the strategic consequences of providing continued bulletin board recruiting material to the very organizations that we're trying to destroy. Mr. Secretary, let me do a hard turn here on a subject really important to U.S. national security, but also to my state. As you know, this budget downgrades our commitment to building Virginia-class submarines from 2 to 1 a year. We made a big mistake in the 1990s when we hollowed out the submarine industrial base. We went from having 12,000 employees at Electric Boat down to about 1,500, and it took us a decade or more to scale back up when we realized we really needed these submarines. How can we look at the request for only one Virginia-class submarine in FY25 as anything but a pretty enormous step back for our industrial base? I'm really worried about our ability to be able to deliver what we know we need, which is 2 Virginia-class submarines and keeping the Columbia-class on time. I just worry that you can't do that if you take this big, even if it's just a 1 year, but a big step back in commitment to the Virginia program.
Thanks, Senator. So the choices are to increase the backlog by putting more demand on the system, or invest more in the industrial base. And that's the approach that we've taken. We asked you for, in 23 and 24, we asked you for $1.9 billion to invest in the industrial base, sub-industrial base. For this budget, we're asking for $4 billion. The supplemental gives us $3.3 billion, and the Australians are also investing in the submarine industrial base, our submarine industrial base. So as I have talked with industry leaders, we have talked about how we go about recruiting more people, increasing strengths in the supply chains. And so that work is ongoing and needs to be done. But we have to increase the capacity. And I know there's arguments both ways in terms of the demand versus investing in the capacity. But they believe, and I believe, that we'll get there, but we just need to do more in terms of capacity. So.
I appreciate that $4 billion investment. It's significant, but that has to be an immediate pathway to get us back on track to be building those 2 Virginia classes a year. Look forward to working with you on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hoeven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that Israel has to fully defeat Hamas so that they don't